Shaya. So we're going to start with Sutra 21 in Chapter 1. Liberation comes quickly when the desire for it is intense. So do you have an intense desire for liberation? This is the trick. We have to want it. If we want to get something, we have to want it. But there's so many other things that we want to do in life, right? I want to go for a bike ride. I want to go swimming. I want to jump in a lake. I want to, there's so many things. So where do we put our energy, our importance? So if our desire is liberation and we keep our focus there, it's going to come quickly. But that's not always the case. So we look at the next sutra as well. We're going to go through 3 tonight, I believe. Sutra 22. Desire for liberation can be mild, moderate, or intense. So when it's intense, liberation comes quickly, but it can be mild, moderate, or intense. The intensity of desire for liberation will reflect the effort that is put into achieving it, as well as the fruit, the success of one's endeavors towards God realization. So the more we want it, the quicker it will come. And for some people, that's my ultimate goal in life. And, you put on the orange robes and move into a cave in the Himalayas and off you go. But, for some of us, we're balancing, other desires in life too. Desire for time with family, desire for some chocolate cake. All these things are still okay. But am I putting my focus the right amount into the spiritual practice? And that's something we can ask. And if the answer is yes, by all means, we stop there, keep up your practice, it's great. But sometimes we say, well, what if I put just a little bit more effort into the spiritual evolution? How will that reflect on everything else going on in my life? Maybe it'll actually enrich life a little bit more. And Swami Jyotirmayananda, he talks about this effort, we can have it with our abhyasa and our vairagya, our dispassion, right? What if we just worked a little bit more on the dispassion for things that don't bring us to ourself? Just up it a little bit from very low to low, or from low to almost medium. And we just question a little bit more, will this bring me closer to what I want out of my life? So we can up the dispassion, just the tiniest bit, or the detachment, just a little, or up the abhyasa, up our practice, just a little bit, our determination, our willpower. I'll meditate instead of every other day, every day. Instead of 7 minutes, 7.5 minutes. Instead of doing 3 rounds of sun salutation a day, I'll do 4 a day. And just that little bit of practice builds a little more willpower. Then it's easier to do the dispassion a little bit, and then maybe we get a little closer. So that would be a good homework this summer, is maybe to take it up 1 notch. And the notches can be from 1 to 100. So you can go from 7 to 8, or 3.5 to 4.5, or 75 to 76. But if we up it too much too fast, then we might not be able to sustain that, right? But it could be just a little bit more. So that could be a little homework. But our main sutra for now is going to be number 23. Ishwara Pranidanad Va. So success is swift for those who are devoted to Ishwara, or God. So this is a whole other way to do the practice. As we say, just focus your mind and have peace of mind. But then Patanjali gives another option, or we could be devoted to Ishwara. So I'll start with Swami Vishnu's talk, and then I'll talk a little bit as well. And here we're bringing in Bhakti Yoga into Raja Yoga. And isn't that interesting? So Raja Yoga is the yoga of the mind, and now Patanjali is saying, well, you can also do this through love. And, if you've ever been, with the kirtan or chanting, it kind of goes both ways. We see we actually have to be focused. If you want to sing something like the Hanuman Chalisa, Shri Guru Charana Saroja Raja, this isn't a song that just repeats. It's different words for 40 verses. It's really hard to stay focused. You have to concentrate. So there's Raja Yoga in Bhakti Yoga. And if you're singing today with some friends, we just chanted a little bit at just after lunch. And just for a split second, I wasn't thinking about what I was doing. I was just concentrating on the aspect of God, playing the harmonium, singing, but everything was just happening. And it was peaceful. Through devotion, you can still the mind, and it's sometimes even easier than through just telling the mind to stop thinking. So Bhakti Yoga can be very helpful to focus the mind, even though it's a heart practice. So while Purusha, which is Brahman or the self, this high idea of consciousness, is the abstract view of the Lord in its purest absolute form. So God without quality at all is just absolute bliss or peace. Ishwara is God as seen with attributes such as love, kindness, mercy, omniscience, and so forth. Because the human mind is too limited to focus on abstraction, most people focus on his manifested form, Ishwara. So when we talk about absolute peace or bliss, so this could be the mantra Om, there's no quality to it. It's very hard to describe and hard to attach to. So it's easier to connect to the divine if there's some form of quality. So we have Jesus, which has a whole story behind Jesus, right? So we can think about that. And there's Mary, the mother of Jesus, and baby Jesus. There's different ways to connect. And then, through the yoga or Hinduism, which I've come to through yoga, Ganesha has all these different qualities. And Saraswati, there's a picture of Saraswati. So she is playing a musical instrument. She's holding some books of knowledge. She's the goddess of intuition and creativity. And these qualities are a little bit easier to attach to. So attaching to absolute stillness or peace can be very challenging. It's very abstract. So attaching to this absolute peace through positive qualities, which we already have within us, it brings out those qualities, and it's a way to be fully present or focused on something that's more concrete, more tangible. So we have, here I have the Murti of Lord Shiva here. So this is a little bit easier to focus on, even though Shiva represents this absolute stillness, this absolute divine. It's through an image, through a form. So it makes it easier to focus the mind on. And we can practice all these different loving rituals towards God in this way. And that makes it a little bit easier for some of us to focus. And sometimes that word God can be hard, but also Mother Nature. So many of us like being out in nature, hugging a tree, being near a river. This is Vana Durga, Mother Nature, that we can actually connect with. So there's so many ways to connect to the divine through the heart. And sometimes we practice it without realizing. In Western tradition, he is usually referred to as God or Jehovah. In the Indian tradition, he is related to in various forms, such as Vishnu, the preserver, Rama, the righteous, and Durga, the divine mother. These various deities are not different gods, but Ishwara, the one God, who is so omnipotent that he is able to manifest as many forms as are needed by individuals of different temperament to help each focus on the supreme. So isn't that lovely? That as many different ways that any one of us needs to connect, there's an aspect of the divine we can connect with. And for some, you can meditate on that notion of absolute peace and consciousness. But if we need to find another way, those other ways also exist. It's just the need to seek it out, to find it. Thus, samadhi comes most quickly to those who place themselves in consciousness of God however they may see him. That is, they have devotion, dedication, and self-surrender to his will. And this notion of Ishwara Pranidhana, surrendering to the divine, letting go a little bit. Sometimes we hold on so tight that it's impossible to move forward. And the devotional practice, a big part of it is just the surrender. If you've ever done the kirtan chanting, it's not easy at first if you didn't grow up with it, right? Even if you have, maybe it's hard. Just to open the mouth and sing, there's a letting go already. And this is another practice we could do over the summer, is this notion of surrender. If something's not working, what if I let go and see, where is life taking me? Where is life pointing me? We say God or divine or just life. What has life been pushing me towards that I'm afraid to look at or afraid to let go to? And that's another notion of surrender, because every time we're resisting where life is bringing us, we're creating turbulence in the mind. And there's so many interesting things that come up with the letting go. We stop resisting. And, it could say, let's say, with, resisting a certain thing at work, let's say, because we're afraid to try it. Or I don't think that's for me. That happens to me all the time. I teach at a yoga studio in Ottawa, and the director says, why don't you teach this type of course? I say, no, I can't do that. It was an intro to Sanskrit course. It was the most recent one. I can't do that. I can't do that. No, I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. And she said, you have to teach it. I say, no. And then, after a month or two of her pushing it on me, I say, okay, fine, if I have to. And then I taught the course, and I enjoyed it so much. I've taught it 3 years in a row now, and I'm actually looking forward to it. And that's a simple way of surrender where, the mind says no, no, no. But, if you're the right person at the right spot in the right time, well, try it. If it doesn't work, so what? You learned it doesn't work. So that's just like simple form of surrender. And then she asked me to teach another course. And I again said no, but this time I only said no once. And then I said, oh wait, that would actually be a nice program. All about like stories about the asanas and, getting some philosophy into those stories of the, why are certain poses named after certain beings or characters or aspects of the philosophy. But first, the answer was no. And, if you notice yourself saying no, that might be a good time to say, what if I just said yes? If it doesn't work, so it doesn't work. But what if I said yes? And then we stop resisting a little bit. And when we stop fighting, the mind becomes peaceful. And that aspect of letting go, we can practice through the Bhakti Yoga, through devotion to the divine. And then we can bring it up because we feel actually supported by that divine energy in our life. So now we have 2 little homeworks. Up the practice just a tiny bit, maybe the dispassion, maybe the discipline, just 1 notch. From low to low and a little, from medium to medium and a little, from high to high and a little. And then liberation comes quickly, and maybe it takes just a little bit of surrender. And we're going to get into the future sutras. We'll talk more about this notion of Ishwar, and that will be coming up after the summer. So very wonderful to have you all along for these lectures, and look forward to continuing in a couple of months. Om Namah Shivaya.